Hello, I am Edward. Imagine a stranger walking into the heart of an empire and bending a room with only a voice and a stare. Some swore he could still a racing pulse, quiet a fever, and pull a royal household back from the edge. Others called him a trickster who read fear and turned it into favor. What was Rasputin's secret, and why did so many powerful people believe it worked? He did not arrive as a magician. He came as a wandering holy man from the wide steppe, rough cloak, worn boots, eyes like storm glass. In drawing rooms he spoke like a peasant and prayed like a monk, and skeptics found themselves listening. His influence began in private spaces, away from gossip, where a terrified mother knelt by a bleeding child and a gaunt pilgrim asked for silence. When the child settled, the room changed. Faith took the credit. Enemies said it was chance. Either way, the legend grew. So what actually happened in those rooms? Begin with calm. He asked for darkness, soft voices, and patience. Bodies often heal best when panic loosens its grip. He told physicians to pause the strong powders and tonics for a time. Without naming it, he removed irritants that made matters worse. Then came tone and rhythm. The low chant, the steady gaze, the slow breath, copied by everyone present. Call it prayer, call it suggestion, call it early hypnosis. The name matters less than the result. A nervous system resetting under shelter. He was not only a calmer of nerves, he was a reader of weather in people. He sensed which officer longed to confess, which lady needed absolution, which courtier dreaded dismissal. He used silence like a rope, drawing words from restless minds until they told him what he needed to know. In a palace split by jealousy, anyone who could dissolve a crisis became a shield, and a shield is priceless at the cliff edge. Why did tales of failure not shrink his legend? Because he understood theater, the public half of influence. One day black robes, the next grey homespun. He ate little, fasted often, and prayed in public halls with tears that looked unplanned. The performance gave anxious people a language to trust. When letters praised him, he read them aloud. When pamphlets mocked him, he laughed and said, "Enemies speak loudest when they are afraid." His contradictions stitched together a persona that was risky to dismiss and hard to ignore. There was a third layer, the private circle. He collected loyalists the way an orchard gathers bees, a doctor who wanted a second chance, a noble who needed to matter again, a nurse who saw a fever break just after he entered. Gratitude welded them into witnesses. When critics said trick, the grateful answered with diaries and testimony. In a capital choking on rumor, their memories were gold. What then was his method in one line? He made rooms feel safer than corridors. His presence lowered voices, slowed breathing, and lifted hope. In that calm, symptoms often eased, sometimes because of the body, sometimes because of the mind. That gap between relief and cause is the doorway through which legend walks. He did not conjure cures, he shaped conditions so that recovery had its best chance to start. Expectation did the rest. Once a crisis improved after he intervened, every later visit began with an advantage. A household leaned toward a cure before the door opened. Expectation is a medicine. When a family, a staff, and a city lean together, small gains look like answers, and answers become stories. The loop feeds itself. The secret was not sorcery. It was a mixture of intuition, presence, restraint, and timing, applied with nerve. You may notice another thread, his refusal to play court games. He ate with workers and nobles, walked at odd hours, spoke bluntly in reception rooms, then folded his hands and prayed as if he heard only the wind. To some that looked like courage, to others it smelled of insolence. Either way, it kept him at the center of talk, and it kept every eye on his next move. So was Rasputin a miracle worker, a mesmerist, or a patient listener who controlled a room better than any minister? The safest answer is that he was an amplifier. He took fear and quieted it. He took hope and sharpened it. He stood where faith and politics meet, and he refused to move. Stay with me, because next we will test this idea against the darkest tales told about him and ask what they reveal. When you strip away the smoke and leave only the human tools that anyone could learn to use. He did not command thunder, yet many swore he walked with storms at his back. Tales said he survived poison, bullets, and freezing water. Notice how such legends grow. A plan born in anger. By dawn, the plotters carry a version that flatters their nerve. There is a quieter reading. When people believe danger has passed, the body often follows. Pulse slows, breath deepens, spasm eases. In a palace on edge, that wave looks like magic. A simpler routine, fewer harsh tonics, soft light, and the absence of panic do much of the work. If someone arrives and imposes this calm, that someone earns the credit. Relief often comes from removing harm rather than adding help. Consider his gaze. A fixed look can hold a room, because silence is hard to bear. Under a steady gaze, anxious minds empty their pockets. Information flows toward the quiet head of the table. He did not need files if the room delivered them through an hour of listening. Once he knew what mattered to each person, help could be shaped to feel personal and fated. Also note what he did not do. He did not prescribe every powder within reach. He urged restraint and rest. In rooms full of bleeding risk and raw nerves, less can help more than excess. Step back from stimulants and irritants, add sleep and warmth, and many crises improve by themselves. When relief follows prayer, prayer takes the headline. When relief follows quiet, quiet earns a line few remember. Now the hard question. Did he cross from influence into harm? It depends on the frame. If influence keeps a household together long enough for healing to start, it saves lives. If it bends counsels toward poor choices, it adds weight to a burden already heavy. He lived on that wire. Some saw a guardian in the sick room, others saw a gatekeeper in the throne room. Both could be true on the same day. The court ran on image. Enemies printed insults. Friends repeated miracles. Rumor piled upon rumor until the man became a canvas for every fear in the city. In such weather, a fall was certain. Night and snow. A trap sold as a visit. A body drawn from a river while streets argued over 100 versions of courage. Strip away the theater and note the recipe. Enter with calm, create safety. Lower voices, slow breath, remove irritants, direct attention. Name a next step, leave the room quieter than you found it. This is not sorcery, it is the craft of easing nerves so that clearer choices can surface. Used with care, it steadies a family through its worst night. Used without humility, it becomes a mask for vanity and a megaphone for error. A small pattern interrupt. He often spoke last. By waiting, he let rivals reveal their angles and allies show their needs. When he finally moved, the room had already dropped into his tempo. Timing became power. Power looked like mystery. Why does his name still hold heat? Because he shifted weather inside people, and they felt it change. Testimony hardened into legend. Where fear met hope, he stood in the doorway and persuaded both to sit down. One man without office shaped a palace because he mastered the nerves that governed its choices. So what was the secret? Call it a practice that looks like power, presence, attention, restraint, nerve. He carried quiet into rooms that had none, and quiet changed outcomes. He listened until people told him how to help, then used what he heard. He tamed chaos without claiming to own order. And he knew people do not follow arguments. They follow feelings that fit the story they want to live. Here is your test. Walk into a tense room and try his sequence. Lower your voice. Slow your breath. Let silence do some lifting. Ask fewer questions and better ones. Remove one irritant. Offer one next step. Notice the shift. That is why the legend refuses to fade. Not because of dark power, but because ordinary tools were used with uncommon poise. The same tools sit within reach of any steady hand. The risk is pride. The promise is mercy. The difference lies in what you serve when the room finally grows quiet and every eye turns to you.